Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gooey's Dungeon Dive, the podcast where I, Gooey, rank every dungeon in The Legend of Zelda, and this week we are set to break the curse upon the Akana region by conquering the Stone Tower Temple. Using the Elegy of Emptiness to leave behind empty shells of the various souls we can inhabit, we make our way to the top of Stone Tower, where the temple lies. Thematically, this is kind of a cherry on top for the Akana region. After seeing this destroyed kingdom that had been plunged into darkness, we are traveling to the source of this curse that actually seems to be where we can gain the power of light. There seems to be some sort of reference to the dual nature of this dungeon in its main gimmick of presenting the dungeon both normally and upside down. Like the rest of the Akana region, which is riddled with all kinds of tidbits and hints of lore and backstory about what could have happened here, this dungeon is even more mysterious and has been the subject of a lot of various theories and the like in the Zelda community. The dungeon theme itself shares some of this mystique and is often considered by many one of the best songs in the series. I love it. Bonus points, really, for having this even more mysterious and otherworldly sound for when the dungeon gets flipped. Navigationally, the dungeon can be very straightforward if you know what you are doing. I think for a first-time player, though, many problems can present themselves. First of all, many of the initial rooms you encounter have a lot going on in them, and it can be hard to realize what exactly you are accomplishing at the time. There are tons of chests, switches, enemies, and some things that you can't access the first time you come to the room, especially in the case of things like chests sitting upside down in the ceiling and stuff. Oftentimes, some of these chests will only contain like stray fairies, not vital to progression, but they will need to be revealed nonetheless because they will be needed to be used as hookshot targets. It will leave you wondering if you have done all that you can do. After gaining the light arrows, this dungeon can be left, and by shooting that which releases the sacred golden light into the blood-stained red emblem outside the temple, it shall rearrange things in which the earth is born in the heavens, and the moon is born on the earth. Of course, this flips the dungeon upside down, and now all of the rooms are presented to us in a totally different context. There is only some slight non-linearity here, having the boss key and small key to reach the boss room being in these offshoot rooms that could be missed. In fact, now that the dungeon has been flipped, it can be completed without flipping it back, but there are still complications that could occur. If you miss the key or the boss key, you may be looking on your map trying to figure out which of the many chests it could be in. A lot of the chests, again, contain stray fairies. Of course, on this go around through the flip version of the dungeon, you will also reveal some more upside down treasure chests, which could cause you to wonder if they contain the aforementioned required items. Even if you make it all the way to the boss, I think curiosity or just the need to collect all the stray fairies will pique a lot of people's interest. This will have people flipping the dungeon to go back and get the chests. There's even a few chests that were accessible from the get-go, but I only noticed some when looking at the dungeon from this new flipped perspective. I suppose too there's a chance that the player could have missed getting the map and compass too, which could make tracking down some of these chests a little bit more difficult. Regardless, I think there are many opportunities here for a fairly straightforward dungeon to actually get kind of confusing. Adding in the gameplay from room to room actually makes quite a difference here too. This being the last true full dungeon of the game, it actually does test your skills and brings in a lot of the use of all the different items and transformation masks in your arsenal. I think many of the puzzles are nice. There are a few though that are a little lackluster upon replay, but first time they're actually pretty novel. It has the sort of last dungeon vibe to it with the enemies, as well as it has a mix of different enemies that have been encountered throughout the game. This weird mix of enemies kind of adds to that weird vibe of the dungeon itself too. We also get some new enemies that sort of tie this whole ancient mystical temple curse thing all together with the Death Armos and the Igor, both pretty cool looking enemies. Speaking of enemies, this dungeon continues the trend of going hog wild with its mini bosses, the Garrow Master being one of the more thematic ones, as he is the leader of all the Garrow ninjas we encountered in Ikana. It makes you wonder what he's up to here. This fight itself is pretty cool, a one-on-one battle with the Master Swordsman, who relentlessly attacks and can sort of vanish and reappear to attack. It's pretty sick, and his final moments after defeating him are pretty memorable. And again, it gets you to thinking about, like, what's this guy's deal? You know, we know they were sworn enemies of Akana, but then there's like this curse upon everyone in the region, and they linger, and he actually, you know, beating him gives you the item you need to flip the dungeon. And I believe his room above the boss's room. So I don't know, maybe he's on some quest here to break the curse. I don't know, lore people probably know more about this than me. But anyway, there's also Gomez, who is sort of a Grim Reaper figure, which is also dope, I guess. He's this dark, imposing guy surrounded by bats with a scythe, and using light arrows to clear the bats around him reveals kind of this weak point on him. And you know, it's just a fun and really cool looking mini boss, and it thematically suits the dungeon really well, and it adds to the mystery. I feel like what's this guy's deal? I don't know, for some reason the mini bosses here kind of make me ask that, where they're a little bit more obvious with the other ones. But that's great. Amazing mini bosses. No need to really change or add anything beyond that. Oh. What? What the hell? This guy again? Are you serious? The game's... Now you've gone too far. Okay, so it's not perfect, but we're gonna move on from this. But we're gonna move on. I'm truly sick of this man. Finally, we arrive at the boss, the giant masked insect twin mold. This fight also varies quite differently between the original and remake of this game, but I feel like I actually like the 3D version more than the original. It made it more enjoyable to me. Instead of simply battling it out right away with the giant's mask or shooting arrows at the creatures, we have two phases here. One where we take out one of the twin molds with a bow, and then we get the giant's mask and don that, and then we go toe-to-toe, fist fighting the remaining one. And I actually like this a lot, especially the second half. You know, becoming giant Link and just punching the heck out of this guy is ridiculous and a lot of fun. I love picking up those giant stone balls to throw at him to knock him down. And of course, I love getting to do some of those pro wrestling maneuvers to him, and Link like flexing and taunting. It's so ridiculous, but pretty amazing. Let me know though which version you prefer. I just don't have strong feelings about the original one myself, but I do like this one. I think it's a pretty fun fight. After defeating Twin Mold and gaining its remains, we free the final guardian giant deity guy, and they will all come when called upon from atop the clock tower to help stop Skull Kid. But there seems to be a sadness about this whole endeavor. Forgive your friend, they tell us, but we don't know what it means. We then return to Akana, and we watch whatever that weird curse was going on dissipate, and the land is now normal, I guess. So yeah, great dungeon. Kind of a great, we'll bring up the ranking. It's a great twist on the, like, I love those kind of semi-linear dungeons that can kind of still give you a nice twist and you know, spin you around a little bit. And it has a little bit of that unofficial final dungeon, maybe it is the final dungeon element, similar to Turtle Rock. And you know what, I think actually kind of that, like, oh, weird, twisty, sort of linear dungeon reminds me of the Forest Temple. And I think this dungeon, I've been really pro on the Majora's Mask dungeons. I don't know if I've lost people with that yet, but I think this dungeon does belong in the top 10. So we're just going to go from there right away. And in fact, I think it goes somewhere in the range for me, around Forest Temple and Turtle Rock. You know, it doesn't do the final dungeon thing better than Ganon's Tower, but does it do the two things I mentioned better than Turtle Rock and Forest Temple? At the moment, I'm kind of inclined to say yes. I just feel like I'm really jamming all the Majora's Mask up top, you know. I feel like as long as it's in this range, I could do it. I think Turtle Rock. I just like using all the different masks here and stuff, you know. And like I like actually how kind of the flipping the whole dungeon reminds me of like twisting the staircase in the Forest Temple, which is kind of minor, but it does show off that 3D twisty thing a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'll put it. People are gonna get mad at me for this series, aren't they? I'm recording these all beforehand, so I'm wondering what the reactions to the previous ones are, but we'll see. It doesn't crack the top 5, but I think I will put it. You know what? Yeah, it's going above Turtle Rock. That just makes sense to me. I think a lot of people love this dungeon, and I was sort of not hot on it before replaying it here, and then I thought I was playing it, I was just like, actually, this is really quite clever. You know, especially if you want to go out of your way and collect all the fairies, it makes it even more wacky. But yeah, I think it doesn't quite reach the peaks of the other ones, but I actually think this game is just really solid with its dungeons and like giving you these wide open spaces to fully navigate and figure out like what its deal is. So yeah, I don't know. I was really positive on the game overall, but we're gonna get more into detail. We're gonna have sort of a wrap up episode, even though this is the last major dungeon. So hopefully you will still join us for the real finale, where we talk about the moon, which is sort of not really a dungeon, but we're gonna. It's a good jumping off point for a last episode, so let's do that. There's also one minor thing I wanted to do. I realized by doing this now, I'm bumping Skull Woods out of the top 10, and I really didn't like that. And I also really don't like bumping Catfish's Maw out of the top 10, and so I think I'm going to make my first alteration here for this season, and I actually want to I'm going to bump Misery Mire out of the top 10 to number 11. I absolutely love this dungeon. Everyone knows that about me. But I just thought I wanted it's sort of that staying power, you know? Like Misery Mire is a lot of fun to play, but I'm starting to realize I like these top ones. I feel like are really ones that are like establishing like what these certain dungeons can be all about. And certainly Misery Mire has that with just how open and stuff it is. So still a very strong spot, number 11, but yeah, I just had to have that in there. That's the only. I'm just gonna do this minor change right now going into the finale with the top ones. Maybe I'll reevaluate some other ones later, but I mostly did a lot of that last season, feel pretty good about it. Anyway, I'll see everybody next week. I'm looking forward to the wrap up with Corey. Thanks for watching.